Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I'm so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about body wisdom. Our bodies are full of magic and wisdom if we can tune in and listen. This month, we'll be exploring how to create a more intimate connection with the unique language of our bodies and use it as a tool for deeper healing. So stay right here and let's hop into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey everyone, it is Mary, and here we are talking about body wisdom again. Oh my gosh, what a incredible month we have already had, and today is no exception. I cannot wait to introduce you to our very special expert guest. I feel like I could just go on and on about this topic, and it's going to be a really powerful conversation. But before I kind of tell you a little bit about Emily Francis, I want to make sure that you go back and listen to the prior 3 episodes that we get into for the month's topic of body wisdom. And the first episode, I really get into the foundation of what is body wisdom, why we've lost connection with that wisdom, and how we've been programmed to kind of see our body as something that is broken and that needs fixing, and help you to kind of come back home to your body. And then the second episode, Lindsley and I, my part-time co-host, we get into the energetic body. And so we look at the body's wisdom through the lens of our energy field, our chakra system, our energy centers throughout the body, and talk about Chinese medicine a little bit and how that all really enhances our understanding of how everything is so connected. So if you want like a little basic kind of explanation on the chakras, more Eastern thinking around the body, definitely go check out that episode with Lindsley and I, connecting to the energetic body. And then last week, I had Allie Wise on the show, and we got into the conversation around how the body stores trauma. And she is just so fascinating to listen to. She's from Romania, and I just loved her wisdom in how we can begin to reconnect with our body when we've disassociated and disconnected from it based from our experiences with trauma, whether that's big T trauma or little t trauma. You definitely want to go check out that episode from last week with Allie Wise. And then this week I have Emily Francis on the show, and I have been like geeking out waiting for this interview because I have been following Emily's work for a really long time, probably 6 or 7 years. And Emily is a sought after speaker. She is an author and a wellness expert, and her knowledge is so vast. She is absolutely brilliant, but she has such a commitment to the mind-body connection and believes that the whole body proactive approach to wellness has to include balance and kindness in order to pave the way for that connection. She is the creator of the Somatic Emotion Chart, which we get into today, and the Muscle Emotion Chart. And she is also the radio host of her show All About Healing on Healthy Life Radio. She has her bachelor's degree in exercise science and wellness, as well as her master's of science in physical education with a concentration in human performance. She graduated from the Atlanta School of Massage and Clinical and Neuromuscular Massage Therapy, and went on to specialize through the Dr. Vodder School North America in manual lymphatic drainage and combined decongestive therapy, working specifically with lymphedema. And she has completed level 1 and level 2 of her Upledger Craniosacral Therapy. And Emily is a Reiki master practitioner, and she is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to how to process through our emotions by accessing our muscles, our tissue, our fascia, and it's just such a cool conversation. So I want to just like get straight into it. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Emily. Hey, everybody. It is Mary, and I am here with Emily Francis, who you just heard all about. She is such a badass. So amazing. Hey, Emily. How are you?
Hi, Mary. Thank you for having me.
What y'all don't know is that it is the middle of the night for Emily while she's doing this interview. And I'm just so grateful that you have agreed to, call in from Spain and talk about the body.
Well, I'm not in Spain. I've actually never been to Spain, but I am calling in from Malta. And Malta is its own country. Everybody gets this wrong. Let me tell you why. Because it's off the coast of Italy. So most people assume I'm in Italy. So they're like, oh, Italy. And it's like, no, I'm in Malta. It's its own neutral country that's English speaking and Maltese speaking, but it's its own. I didn't even know it existed. It was a storyline on my soap opera a grillion years ago on As the World Turns, if you ever used to watch that.
Yes.
And
oh my gosh.
Damien and Lily, remember Lily and Dusty or whatever? He kidnapped her and took her to Malta, but I never knew it was real. Like when I told my best friend that I was moving to Malta, she goes, do you mean like Lily and Damien, Malta?
You're like, well, yeah, actually.
You understand me.
Amazing. Well, clearly I didn't know it existed either because in my brain, I was thinking Spain. So there we go.
What's Europe? It's all Europe. So we're all in European places.
If that doesn't show my true American,
Moving here has shown so many American sides to me and made me realize how here the people are really all the kids that we meet are at least bilingual, if not trilingual.
Oh, sure.
And they all seem to understand and have a really good concept of world history and world geography. And I'm like this moron who's like, is it one of the 50 states? Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. And I'm not sure I can list them all.
Like it is crazy. And it makes me, because when I was growing up, we took US history, US citizenship, US geography. We didn't take anything outside of the United States because to us, you don't need to know anything but this.
I was going to say.
And then you get out into this other part of the world. I have to tell you, it's humbling. It's humbling. Yeah. And it's humbling to be the foreigner now.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it's beautiful. Like I don't think at another time in my life, I would have been appreciative or neutral coming in. I think when I was younger, I think I would have been arrogant, like, hello, I'm American. Do you not love me? You're supposed to.
Right.
And now it's more like, okay, I'm going to try to learn your customs and your culture and still bring in some of mine, but be much more mindful and respectful. And I'm a different person coming into this, and I really value, and it's really the kids. So the last country that used to rule Malta was England. So they were ruled by Arabic nations. So Maltese, the language of Maltese is 70% Arabic. And then it's like a mishmash of French and Italian and all this. And it's really hard to follow. But but they all speak English as well. The English accent is very sing-songy and most resembles British. But to see all these kids running around and they're like yelling, but they are like sing-songy. They just sound polite. It's like they sound sweeter, more polite. They come help us on. They just say things differently. I realize how brash I tend to sound sometimes because I just get to it where I'm like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And they're
where are you from originally?
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. So I'm in Nashville.
I do a lot of hey. Yes. Yeah. So we do a lot of hey. And here, they don't do that. So they'll stop and go, good morning. How are you? Good day.
Like, slow down.
Okay. I got to slow my roll because I sound so rude. Like I sound exactly like people think Americans sound.
That's amazing. You're like, here I am, poster child. Thank you very much. Well, what a cool experience, especially to be able to give that to your children and what a magical time.
Malta is rated one of the safest countries in the world. People don't carry guns here at all. You're not allowed.
Yeah.
You don't see people fighting. You don't see people yelling. I saw these two men get in an argument in their cars and they finger pointed through the window and yelled and then drove off. And I thought,
like, that's it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. I wanted to pull out my phone, but it is an incredible place to raise children. And the coolest thing is since I've been here, I've been on a wellness show 6 times. I've been on their primetime show promoting my book, things that I've never been able to get in America, things that
Wow.
I've crawled up the walls begging for. Here, everybody's got a
Yeah.
guy, everybody knows everybody. There's not a lot of authors. So everybody's like,
Yeah.
hey, let me get you on TV.
So
Hey, I know
exciting.
this guy. And now I did this myself. It's amazing. I'm a contributing writer for Oh My Malta magazine, which is the
How
official
cool.
tourism magazine of Malta. So like if you were on in Delta, you have those Delta magazines in the
Yeah, yeah,
seat.
yeah.
This is the Oh My Malta in Air Malta. So if you're sitting
I
on the
love it.
airplane, it's got this. And so it's an American girl angle in Malta. So it's called Emily in
Yeah.
Malta, like Emily in Paris on Netflix. So we're
Cute.
doing Emily in Malta, and I'm writing, and they bring a film crew, and I go and interview local, because Malta is a GMO free country, which is a huge
That's
deal to me.
amazing. Yeah.
And so I've been interviewing these farmers, local farmers here,
Hmm.
about how they harvest and how they do their crops without spraying with pesticides
Yeah.
and all these nasty poisons. So it's like it's a dream. I'm living the wildest dream, and now to have Emily in Malta with Oh My Malta, it's been so much fun.
That is just such a fabulous story. I know I was thinking, I was like, I know you're not, I knew you were American. And I've obviously been following your work for such a long time. And so when I saw you were in Malta, I was like, I got to know the story of this, because I would say, like, for most of my listeners, they are just now kind of coming into this understanding of the mind body connection. And this whole month we're spending on body wisdom and getting into all this stuff. And it was like, on my vision board that I would actually like be able to connect with you and have you on this conversation, because you are, to me, one of the only people. There are several others, but it's a small group of people that are talking about the wisdom of the body and the connections to trauma, the connections to our emotions. And so will you take us on like a quick little Emily history to share
Yeah.
how you even like got into this in the first place? And then, now here you are in Malta.
Yeah. So my undergraduate degree back in 1998 was in exercise science and wellness. So I've loved
Okay.
the muscles forever. I've always had sort of a deep love affair with the muscular system and studying it, but not the way I study it now.
Yeah.
So that was back in 1998, and I loved muscles. And then I became an aerobic director, kickboxing instructor, yoga, kung fu, tai chi, all the physical, and then the energy. So like when I first started studying yoga and tai chi, nobody had ever talked to me about energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something that everybody thought was taboo. It was a part of your standard dialogue. And that opened me up in a big way. And then a few years later, I went to massage school. So I did clinical and neuromuscular massage therapy. And then right after massage school, I went through the Dr. Vodder program, which is very
Mm-hmm.
rare, for lymphatic drainage and combined decongestive therapy. So I work on people post-cancer. So I work on people that have a chronic condition called lymphedema. So let me give you a really easy example.
Yeah.
Woman has breast cancer. They've gone through radiation. The lymph nodes in their armpit has been severed. And now the liquid, the plumbing system that the arm would govern no longer works. So all this liquid is stuck in the hands, the fingers, the elbows. So we work on them to redirect the liquid to other parts of the body that can digest it, quote unquote, digest it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing work, because it's like being a sculptor. Because with massage, you say to people, call me in 3 days. Don't call me before that. You're going to be a little tender. It's going to be this, but in 3 days you should see things. But with lymphatic, you see the work under your hands and before your eyes.
Wow.
So women leave being able to see their knuckles again. They leave being able to see their wrist or their elbow bone. Wrinkles are a very exciting thing because the liquid is leaving the building, and the liquid leaves via the urine. So people always wonder, how does it come out? It leaves through the urine. There was a woman that I worked on many years ago now. I got to be a mentor. I got to have a mentor who took me under her wing and let me work with her, because she was very ill and needed somebody to take over her practice. And there was a woman with bilateral lymphedema, which means both legs were affected. Both legs were huge, like elephantitis, huge. And my mentor's working on one leg and I'm working on the other. And I'm not getting any kind of results. And I'm getting really sad because my mentor is just rocking through. And she looked at me and she goes, listen, her nervous system doesn't know you yet. there's a relationship between your touch and her body. And until that is established, her body isn't going to let go. But I promise, when her nervous system realizes that your hands are here to help, she'll start to release. And it was maybe a couple weeks later, I got 2 full inches, not centimeters, inches of fluid off her ankle.
Whoa.
And then it starts to be where these people, it's not them trusting you, it's their body, it's the nervous system. All of a sudden you put your hands on their neck, because you always start with the neck. If a person does lymphatic drainage and they don't start with your neck, get off the table. They are lying about their credentials. Get off the table. There's so many people that lie about lymphatic. It makes me crazy. So it's my number 1 rule. If they don't start at your neck, get up. Get up.
Good
they're wrong.
Know.
Because you have to, the lymph is a negative system. You have to clear the pathway. You got to go top to bottom. If you don't, then everything's going to get backed up even worse. So people saying, oh, I do lymphatic, and they're like estheticians, and estheticians do have a specific lymphatic drainage training.
Yeah.
So if they're the right people, they're not afraid to show you their credentials. But if they just keep telling you and they don't have the plaques on the wall, or if you ask for it, you should be able to find them. Like, you can find my name on the Dr. Vodder site of therapists. Anyway, that was huge to me, because the body started to speak in a different dialogue to me. The other thing is, when I was in massage school, when I was a student, and my teacher, this is so nuts to me. This is the entire foundation to the body heals itself. The whole thing about the muscles. This is the day that it all began. And my teacher has no memory of it whatsoever. But he was teaching the class on a muscle called the psoas. The psoas is the PSOAS. It's your primary hip flexor. It makes you be able to sit in a chair, get up from a chair, drive a car. It's the bend and stand. So it's between the hip bone and the pubic bone in the lower abdomen. Okay, so he's talking about getting work on the psoas, which is almost now obsolete in massage schools, which breaks my heart, because it's one of the most specialized techniques you can do. But they've removed it because so few people really understand anatomy, which is heartbreaking. Yeah. Anyway, back then in clinical, we understood anatomy because they drilled it. And so he's teaching about the psoas, and he says these words. The psoas is the second most emotional muscle in your body. So you have to be really careful when you treat, because more than likely, women especially will cry. They will experience an emotional release, because this is near sexual assault triggers. This is near menstrual triggers. This is near cysts. So the whole gamut of sexual reproductive area. So when you're treating this muscle, a lot of things release. So you have to be really careful the way that you approach someone's body, and make sure that it's very clinical and they understand. And I was like, everything in my head was like, I have to know everything. And I stayed after class that day, and I was like, how do they know that muscle is emotional? Who wrote it? Where's the book? I have to have the book. And he said, there's no book. Nobody's ever written a book on that. This is just passed down from generations to generation through body workers. And in my mind that day, it was like, I'm writing the book. And that was 15 years in the making.
Wow.
So I started testing on people's bodies and doing hypothesizing. And it just seemed that things were constant, that this area in the body seemed to be this emotion. This area behind the shoulder blades seemed to be betrayal. These areas in the knees seem to be that you're stuck. You're trying to make a decision, but you're not making one. So you're stuck, and they swell. And people will come in and go, nothing happened, but my knees are acting up, but I didn't tear anything, and I didn't have a fall, and I didn't twist. And so you go, okay, well, the physical body doesn't line up. So let's talk. And it was like every person started to say, I'm at a fork in the road. I'm trying to make a decision. I can't really figure it out. And it was like, I just kept feeling this image of standing in quicksand, and it makes your knees swell. Yeah. And so it started to, and then you start to talk to other body workers or other energy practitioners, and they have very similar, if not the same information. Right. So what makes my work stand out is that I kept with the same conversation piece in myself to a body for more than 15 years. And two, there's not a lot of body workers that are writing books. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's true.
Because a lot of times you have body workers in a spa. They're not there sitting there thinking like, oh, wow, this body is saying this. They're thinking we have this much time and we got to go. But if you're doing really clinical, you're doing a totally different, like I can't work under a clock. So people know I got really weird about my work. So I do a flat fee. because I hate people that charge on the end and then all of a sudden you pay more than you thought. That's so unfair.
Right.
So, and that's how I began.
I'm so glad that you shared that. It's fascinating to me because in my own study, it's like you've got different schools of thought. You've got like Chinese medicine, you've got the correlation between the organs and the emotions. Then you've got the meridians, you've got the energetic body, which a lot of times you'll learn in yoga, Ayurvedic, tradition, you have all these different modalities. And I remember when I picked up The Body Heals Itself, it was like, oh my God, if I could have written a book, this is the book that I would have written, because you tie in so many different schools of thought, but it's like you said, it's so based on your own experience as well. And your understanding of the body, the muscles, like all the images that you have in the book. I love that about your books, that you show the images. Because for a lay person, it's like nobody goes to school to learn about your body. Like we don't have this own knowledge of how
sad.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? It's like the thing that is like our most important thing in life, our body. We have zero understanding. Even if you've gone to medical school, of course, there's no conversation about the spirit, about the energy, about our emotions and the connection, how that shows up physically. So for you to be able to gift this to the world is amazing. I have it right here. I literally I want to tell you, like, everything is underlined. Like, Emily, it's such an amazing work. And when
that
I saw
my body of work. Of all the books I've written, that's the book that I would hang my hat on, truly, because it's the foundation of all of my work. And I love everything else I've done. And I'm proud of the two that came after that one. And Stretch Therapy came before that one. And a book called Witchy Mama came before that one too. I co-wrote. But this one was my work that no one, even like when I did sit down with an acupuncturist who used to be the head of the Asian Bodywork program at my massage school. And I sat down with them and I'm like, look, I have this idea for the book. I want to interview you about this. And he was like, well, okay, wait, you're not going, like, he almost wanted me to go so deep into one aspect. And then he goes, this is like, you're trying to bring them into the ballpark. I said, that's exactly right. I don't need to give everybody the answer. I'm trying to get them to come to the field. And then they pick which parts they want to really study. And at first he kind of, well, why would you do that? And then he made a comment about the glutes, so your butt, right? Holds aggravation and suppression. So this is all the times that people upset you, but it's not worth speaking. You sit on it and you literally sit on it. So when I'm massaging the glutes, people get mad, people get sweaty. They have these conversations that are totally random, but it isn't random. It's things that are releasing that you've been holding. So I tell him this and he goes, well, yeah, of course it is, because the liver gallbladder line runs through there and that's aggravation and suppression. And I said, okay, here's the difference. You knew that. I didn't. You learned it from a book. I learned it from the body.
Wow.
And he sat there for a minute and he was like, okay, I'm open to this, and I said, I understand meridians. I have been a long time patient of Chinese medicine, but never do I sit there and think, oh, this is running through this. And this is why I feel like this. There's only a very few areas in my body where I'll go, oh, well, that's kidney one, or, oh, that's lung one. Of course, that's grief. Right. But there's not a lot of that for me because I spent so much time on the muscles. I can't overload my brain and really understand the saturation of what it is. So I always research it, but he got it that you learned it because your textbook told you. I learned it because the people's bodies told me. And that's where my work shifted off everybody else's, where I could turn around and go, this is my work, because there's something about the muscles and me. There's something about when I put my hands on people's bodies, I swear to you, it's odd, but it's like the muscles are going, me. I'm over here. I am begging for you to find me. And then what happens is people squeal around and cheat a little bit in their body. They don't mean to, but if you start to catch on to where their pain is, they shove it into another area. So it takes somebody that can see energy to trace it. and go, okay, little stinky pot, I know where you
I
are.
see you.
I know where the beginning. And it's not just, there's a chart on trigger points where you have, you push on one place, but then the pain is received in another place. So those are called trigger points, and they're very real. But again, I don't know my trigger points.
Yeah.
What I do is I follow with my eyes when my hands are on one part, where that little booger has gone to, because people try to shove it. They don't even know that they're doing it, but the body is like, oh, I thought I wanted you to come visit, but the truth is I don't. So can you leave? It's cool. And I follow, but it's this, I don't even know. It's some sort of gift that I'm grateful to have. And it's odd now because in Malta, I don't work. I mean, I write, but I don't have a work permit here. My husband is here on a grant for his AI company, and they're working with the prime minister. And so I've been on a couple shows and people have emailed me, it's okay, I'll pay cash. And I'm like, listen, that used to be okay in America, but here I can't like risk the big deal that's going on. So it's a sad, there's a couple people that I've traded. That's like, so my animal acupuncturist and I trade work. So he treats my animals and I treat him, because that's just how we can play. And now because we flew all 4 animals with us to Malta, 3 dogs and a cat. So I have this, and Chinese medicine for me is always my go-to. So if there's something wrong in my body and I cannot figure it out, the very place, like my dog had what looked like a seizure. I ran him to the vet. I spent $500 on blood work, on x-rays, on fluids, and they couldn't find anything. And so I'm telling my friend, I need Chinese medicine and I don't have my team here. In Atlanta, I had my healing team for all my children, for me, for my pets. I had my team in place, and here I have nothing. And I was like, I need Chinese medicine and I have no idea how to even begin. And she sent me a text and she goes, what about this guy? And it turned out that I had lent 2 people on the island my animal crates for them to travel with their animals. They were both my mutual friends with this guy. And so I'm like, okay. So I go to him. I don't tell him anything about myself. I get my dog treated. My dog is like 90% better after the one visit. And then I gave him my book, and he wrote to me and he was like, can you be my therapist, my massage therapist? And I was like, no, I'm not allowed to work. Oh, wait, but I have an idea.
That's awesome. He's like, good.
So now I got 4 animals round robining to him. And he's so sweet. He's like, I can't go at least a month without, like, I have to have this. Now that I know what this kind of work is, I have to have it in my life.
Well, and I mean, it is so, obviously I've never experienced your work, like, physically, but even just having the book and having the resource. I mean, I think what's so amazing about the invitation that your work has is that it invites those of us who are wanting to learn how to listen into our bodies and make those connections. It's like, it gives you a roadmap to start thinking, okay, I wonder if this is what's showing up. And so as we start to feel our bodies more and get tuned in to the subtle sensations, and even the sneaky ways that our pain is migrating and moving and shifting and all those kinds of things, like my level of awareness has greatly it's like risen to such a degree where it's like I can feel something. And now I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday about this. I was like, I don't think I could ever go back to having any kind of sensation and not thinking, what does this mean? And it's like, let me go grab Emily's book. Let me go check it out.
You don't want to go back. You don't want, that's the thing.
It's so helpful.
I feel like that's what happened when I went to massage school, because you spent one day or like 6 hours on one muscle, one muscle group. And so start to finish, you come out of there understanding your body in a way that no one could ever explain until you go through it.
Yeah.
And it's like, totally. I can feel I always thought I was super in tune, but it doesn't even compare. And the other thing is, and this is sort of I do not want to sound arrogant or tooting my own horn, but here's what I think makes me a little different. A lot of people in the therapy world keep a lot of things to themselves, and that way you keep coming back.
Right.
They do it as a carrot. They dangle it. I know this much, but keep coming to me and I'll slowly let you know more. And I've always had an issue with that. I've had an issue with that when I was a yoga teacher and people would keep so much. I had an issue with it in massage, and I definitely have an issue with it in writing, because to me, I want to give you literally everything I've spent years learning. Without an attachment, because if I'm not, and that's why actually this last book, Healing Ourselves Whole, which I'm going to show you on here. I consider this the end of my trilogy of healing, because the body heals itself is, why do we carry pain where we do? Whole body healing, the one after it, is who do we go to and how do we find which aspect of our body is out of balance and how do we treat it? So how do you assemble your team? And it's 20 years of research on healing team. And then this last one is the work you do by yourself. It's the work you do alone. It's the work that you do that people don't teach you, because that's the last dangling carrots. And for me, I've done everything I could do, and I've learned everything I can learn. And yes, of course I could write more books. Of course I could, but it would be up to me to continue my studies, because everything that I've spent my life learning, they're in these books. They're in one of the 3 books.
You can, I mean, they're so dense. I mean, not in a way that you can't digest it, because it's very friendly to novices, you know, in this world. So it's so approachable, but it's dense in the sense that there is so much information, which I love. Like for a researcher like me, somebody who just like geeks out over this stuff, I'm like, oh, I just love it, love it, love it. And I'm glad that you're segueing into the new book, because I really want to dive into this. I have not finished it yet. I'm about halfway through, and I know that
you're be taken slow.
I was going to say, it's like, and I have not done everything. You know, you have amazing meditations in here and journal prompts, which is so nice to have the roadmap on. Okay, if you want to do this work for yourself, here's how you do it. Literally step by step. And I know that the audio version came out today, which is really, really exciting, which I'm going to get, because I'm like, you know, you have all these meditations and I want to listen to them.
Yeah. And those are free on my website. So if you just have the book and you still want to hear the audio. So the audio meditations on my website are me. So I recorded them before I left the United States with a singer producer named Mark Van Allen, who is a producer and a hypnotherapist. So he put together amazing, and he plays steel guitar. So all the music in the background is really spot on. I love him. I've worked with him before. And so if you go to healingourselveswhole.com, you can download any of the audio meditations right there, and they're me. But the audio book is actually a different narrator. And that took a lot of trust. But what I did, because I auditioned for my own book, and they're like, wow, well, we're keeping people in house with COVID. And honestly, here I am in Malta. My landlord, because we rent houses mostly here, her husband is a filmmaker here, and he brought over a sound booth for me. It's still here because they wanted it out of their house. So I've got this whole sound booth behind this screen to keep, because all the buildings in Malta are made of limestone. So it's super echoey. So my radio show was like, oh, wow, 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 wow. Like, and my producer was like, oh my God, I can't
fix this.
So I brought this in. So I have it in my office all the time now. But the 10-minute audio that they wanted me to submit took me more than 2 hours. I just kept re-recording. I could hear myself swallow. I could hear every sound. I was almost in tears. And I'm literally like trying to record and thinking, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this to yourself? Let somebody else do this. You're such a control freak. And I realized I was trying to control the narrative. I wanted you to hear the book how I wanted you to hear the book. But ultimately, it was a huge relief when they said, look, we want to go with in-house. And then my friend who has 2 other audiobooks with her voice, her third book, it was the same thing, same company too. They chose an in-house, and she was very upset by it. And so she gave me this sort of step-by-step, because I've never had a book in audio before. And so what she said is they pick 2 people and you choose between the 2. And that flipped me out. So I did a totally different take, and I went to the publisher's website and listened to every sample audio for days and days.
Oh my gosh.
And I found a woman that had no accent. It was a perfect American. There was no Southern drawl. There was no Northern. There was no, it just was perfection to me. So I called my literary agent and I was like, listen, I found a person that's
This is the woman.
and I want her. And he goes, then you need to hang up with me right now. Don't waste another minute. Email the publisher and ask. So he's like, just do it. Do a preemptive strike. Go ahead before they give you those two names, because when they give you those two names, you're out. And so I wrote to them saying, listen, I found Stina Nielsen. And I didn't know this at the time, but she was Goodreads narrator of the year last year.
Oh, wow.
She has narrated over 170 books and she's been on Broadway. Her voice is spectacular, but it was still scary because it's like, okay, I'm giving you my baby. I hope that you do it justice. I have zero say. And I wanted to email her and they wouldn't let me. I felt like a stalker. I was like, can I let her know that I'm honored and that I'm really excited to see what she does? And my editor was like, how about if I pass it along? I was like,
you're like, okay.
And then, so I'm like sitting and with books, you get the advanced reader copy like a month before everybody else. So you know what you're pitching. Sure. With the audio, I heard it today when it released.
Oh my God.
That is so overwhelming. And I've only heard the 4-minute and the 2-minute sample. I still don't have access to the book. So I haven't been able to listen to all of it. I have like been scurrying around the internet and I've literally seen when they first listed it and gave an Audible.
Hilarious. And
Amazon was the last one to upload. So every time I would hit listen, it would say, we're sorry, but until it's published, you cannot hear it. And I'm like, it's published. Today is published day. But I like it. And the more I listen, because I've obviously listened to it at least 30 times since it came out 3 hours ago. I mean, I'm sending it to my husband. Does this make you proud of me? Like it is something different to see what somebody else does with your work and your words. And her voice it's really nice and it's smooth. And mine's a little, I'm a little more in your face and I'm a little more passionate about it. So she actually takes the undercurrent way and I would have been super diving, so the more I listen, the more that I keep trying to, and I literally sat with it and then listened to my audio on my website. Like if somebody's listening to this, would they want to listen to, it's like, I mean, all of your insecurities come flying out because it's like, the book it's your book, but it isn't your book in this context. So it's I've dreamed of having an audiobook ever since I started writing. And all of a sudden it's in someone else's voice and someone else's tone. So like at first I was like, oh, she sounds sad. And then it was like, oh, okay, that's good. I like the way she said that. And then it was like, you need to step away for a minute.
Like, it's probably good you weren't part of the process through it all.
I would have been awful. Could you imagine if I was like in the sound booth?
Oh my God.
I would have been like Phoebe on Friends, like smelly cat. No, you have to do it up. And that's too much. No, that would have been horrible.
Well, I want to like dive into this because there's so much wealth of knowledge about trauma, about pain. And I think that it's a new concept for me, obviously, like your somatic chart, somatic emotion chart. And I would love for you to just kind of explain the basics of that, of like, what is a somatic emotion chart?
Okay. So the word somatic means body. So, you have all these people in healing field and they like to use somatic. And I remember the first time I heard it and I thought, what is that? And then somebody goes, it means body. And I thought, well, then why don't you just say body? So every time I say somatic, I put in parentheses, somatic is a fancy term for body, because I understand now that the big dogs in the healing field need to hear the word somatic and the lay person doesn't. So I'm trying to do both. But here's the deal. If you go to a therapist, a cognitive therapist for any sort of psychology, they might, and I'm not saying they will, but they might turn you towards an emotion wheel or a feeling wheel or an emotion chart. And they'll try to get you to explain how you really feel. And you have an abundance of words to choose from. But when I put my hands on your body, the body tissues have a very small, very specific set of emotions that they abide by. So the body's not sitting there going, I feel like they're a little condescending. I feel a little intimidated. I feel a little this. That's not how the body rolls. And this is why when people come to me, especially for emotion stuff, I don't ask for your story. You and I don't sit down and have this big bang, bang discussion of tell me what happened in your life, because I need to be able to listen to your body. And your dialogue probably isn't the story that your body wants me to know. So I work directly with your body. And this is the part, in my opinion, that has been missing in healing. So I created the Somatic Emotion Chart because of all the years I find that the body holds one of four things heavy: trauma, shame, guilt. The trauma, shame, guilt comes in a cycle. You really don't have one without the other. It's a circle. Consider it the trauma, shame, guilt cycle. Then you have one beast on its own, and that's grief. And grief lives by itself. Grief is its own entity. And grief is not the kind of thing that you can look at somebody and go, all right, we're going to rearrange it. And then you're going to be able to release it. That's just BS. We're just going to try to help you carry it. And we're going to try to help you carry it in a way that it sits in your front pocket and not down your whole body. It's always there. You cannot dismiss. Grief changes you entirely. In my opinion, it slices through your body and it has you live now in a parallel life. And you might have seen this because I have it in other books too.
Yeah.
I believe that when grief happens, you now live on the life that is your reality and the life that could have been your reality had this thing not happened. So you live on two time zones now. My dad would have been 75 this year, right? Instead of this year, we're not celebrating this birthday, but I'm thinking about him. Grief changes you completely. So those are your heavy four emotions: trauma, shame, guilt, grief. Okay. Then you have four really fantastic emotions. And this is the other part of the play, is that your muscles store trauma the way they store joy. So if you want to get into those muscles and have them release trauma and give you a flashback, and then these hormones happen and you're going back through, guess what? Joy lives on the other side of that. And you can trigger the same way and then have those hormones release and learn how to double up your healing. So, so you have fabulous four emotions, which is happy, joy, connected, empowered. Now, how do you get from the heavy to the fantastic? It's a bridge. So that's what I call the action bridge, which is suppress. Suppressing your emotions keeps you on the trauma, shame, guilt, grief cycle. Process, but process just means you're willing to lift it up off the tissue. You don't actually have to do anything today. And you don't have to make yourself go through it. You're not a victim all over again. You're just willing to lift it a little and then release. And the release is you're going to witness, but you're not in it anymore. So if you're going to see a trauma, you're not rehashing it. You don't have to shake and go through it again. You're going to be now, instead of the main character, the narrator. And then when you finally release, you go into happy, joy, connected, empowered. And if I may, I'd like to discuss those. Yeah. So happy is, in my opinion, something that doesn't dive deep into the body, but happens so often that your body can recognize it really quickly. So there's a physiological response, but not the way joy does. Okay. So happy is something that is fleeting, but you can catch it because it happens a lot. Happy, bliss, smiling, laughter, that's all in the happy game. Gosh, if it doesn't happen at least 1 to 3 times a day, we have work to do. Put in a comedy show. Joy, though, joy is the massive one. And even though trauma is first on the heavy four, I line up joy to trauma. Okay. Because the muscles can release joy. And here's what I mean. How many times have you heard a song and all of a sudden you're transported back with your first love and you're back in the car and you can smell the scents and you're having a full visceral release, right? My boyfriend who I loved, I'm on the vinyl leather seats. I can smell his cigarettes. I can smell his cologne. I am like there. I'm listening to the song. I'm having the release of joy. The muscles are re-releasing. And I learned this just last week. I was on Dawson Church's show, who has written the book Bliss Brain. And I said this, through this work and through these interviews, I am realizing at the beginning of the book, I asked you if you could get comfortable with the discomforts. Can you be vulnerable when the trauma and things come up? Can you sit still and let the discomforts arise? But now I realize your big, brave, bold move is, can you do it in joy? Wow. Can you sit when joy comes and not couple it with a fear thought? Can you have that blissful, joyful release and not think catastrophe is around the corner because I just experienced joy? Right? So now I think that's actually your bravest, boldest move, is to sit still when joy comes around. And then Dawson added to it and he said, want me to take it a level higher? That's not necessarily what he said, but I like it. He said, if you can sit there for 20 seconds or more, the neural pathways will widen and strengthen. And the chemical hormones will release. The dopamine receptors come out.
That's
20
amazing.
seconds. So when joy comes in, because it is deeply physiological, and I believe that the muscles store it literally the same exact way that they store trauma.
Wow.
So when joy comes in, can you sit still? Do you notice when people really feel it, they shut their eyes? They want the body to feel it. They want to experience it. But then when they walk away, they think, oh no, everything's really good. I'm screwed. So that's happy to joy. Now the next two, connected. So connected, think about when your body is in chaos and nothing feels connected. You've now got anxiety or depression. So now you've got the mental stuff going on. Your body starts to have all these really odd pains and ailments, and you cannot trace or track. So imagine a line of magnets that should be positive to negative to line up, but instead they're positive to positive and negative to negative, and everybody's in chaos and disarray. And that's what's happening in your body. But imagine when your body, when all the cells, the cellular memory, the fascia, the muscles, the soft tissues, the blood and plasma, Chinese medicine believes that blood and plasma is where memories move, that's how you restrict.
That is your life force.
Memory. So imagine if all of your body systems were on the same one team with the same one goal for the outcome, which would be supreme health and happiness, right? So that's when you become connected. All the little backwards, chaotic, positive to negative line up. Now we're heading towards the healthy track, wherever that is. And that's where my mantra comes in. And I wrote it in my other books, but I wrote it again here. And I remember my first editor emailing me and saying, you cannot put that in without quoting who wrote it. And I wrote back and I said, I wrote it. It's mine. It's an Emily original. And I thought of it in yoga because I was having a panic attack in yoga. It was really crowded. It was an Ashtanga class. Everybody looks like a goddess. I'm feeling like I'm getting my butt handed to me. I've not been exercising for years. I'm coming back in, and my mind won, and it was the bad part. And so I was like, okay, should I leave? Like I started having that freak out moment. And then I started talking to myself, and I said this. And once I said it, I repeated it for 1 hour, and everything in my body changed. And it was this. Every cell in my body is reprogramming itself to function at healthy, optimum levels. I said it over and over again. Every cell in my body is reprogramming itself to function at healthy, optimum levels. All of a sudden, my yoga practice became fun. I felt safe. I felt like all the train tracks were heading to the right direction. And that was my introduction into what it is to be connected. So that's the fabulous four. And the last one is empowered. And that is that you understand happy, you recognize it, you play with it. When joy comes, you're willing to sit still. The connectedness, you're going towards the same one place, but now you're going out in public. Can you maintain that sense of peace? That's empowered. When you're not affected, when you walk out, and now the people driving, the people walking, the sounds, they're not affecting this forward motion where we're all on the same team in our mind. So we're no longer, like for me, who dealt with anxiety for 7 long years, was terrified to go to the grocery store. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I had the same thing with the grocery store. That's crazy. I could so identify with that. Yeah.
I used to call my friend because she was my calmer, and she was a massage therapist and a yoga teacher. She's actually the front cover model on Stretch Therapy. And she said to me one time, she goes, you need to make me a promise. When you feel anxious, I want you to tell me when it's happening so I can help you. Stop telling me after you've finally calmed yourself down. Stop telling me after the big panic attack where you freak out and now you've come back to center and then you go, oh my gosh, I've just been totally freaked out for the last 30 minutes. And she goes, just promise me, just tap me on the arm and say, hey, it's happening.
Yeah.
So she was my safety. So I would call her when I would go to the grocery store. But unfortunately, the grocery store didn't have internet and it would cut me off as soon as I walked through the doors. And so she would wait by the phone for me to walk out and go, I did it. I went grocery shopping. And so now I meander through the aisles now in the grocery store because I'm the only one that knows, like, yeah, look at you so brave. Look at you grocery shopping, which is like, it's sad and also huge because nobody else needs to know that I might freak out at these massive aisles or whatever. So that's empowered. Can I go into this place now and be unaffected by the outside energies. Because some of it would say, and I agree with it, that I'm so sensitive to other people's energy that sometimes it really had nothing to do with me at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's odd to say the only time I was really good at protecting myself energetically was if I was drinking, because I knew in any bar setting that I didn't want any kind of juju from any other person. And I knew how to put up the wall. But in healing spaces where you are supposed to interact, I didn't know how. So we even learned it in massage school. They called it transference, but people will come to you in your massage clinic and say, oh my God, I've got the worst headache. And then they get the massage and they leave and they go, wow, my headache's gone. And you turn around 5 minutes later and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm dying, and you have this headache. And it's like, okay, you can't deny that there is a transference that happened. You can't deny that energy is actually not just a thought. It's not a concept. It's real. So it's even, you know what? Chemotherapy seeps through the skin. So when you're working on somebody who's going through cancer treatment, that chemo seeps through their skin while you treat. That's crazy, right?
That is crazy.
And I have to tell you this one story and then I'll promise I'll let you talk.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I was flown to Miami with one of my lymphedema clients, and I was flown with her because flying is really hard on lymphedema and you have to wrap and bandage. And so she needed me to bandage her before we took off. And then when we landed, and then I wanted to take her to a particular compression shop. It was the only one in the world that actually didn't take any kickbacks from any companies. So they carried every product known to man, and they actually fit you according to your body instead of who pays them. So we went to Miami to go do this. And while we were there, a mother-daughter, both nurses, both Vodder trained, and then another training, lymphatic drainage. And she made an appointment with them. And I just wanted to watch, because that was my training too. But I wanted to see these master workers. And they let me work with them, which was amazing. So we are all working, and the mother starts doing this interesting pumping her middle finger under the ribs to the liver. And this person on the table had not had chemotherapy in more than a year, but green pussy liquid from her liver came up through the skin, and I could taste it, and she could see it, because I can taste things in my mouth. So if somebody's going through chemo and I hug them, I can taste it. So I have to be really, really protective of myself because I'm so sensitive. But she looked down and she was like, Emily, do you see this? Do you see this? Is this real? And it looked like a lily pad. It looked like an old, dirty, dingy lake coming up off her liver, this liquid, and just sitting still. And it was this greenish, yellowy pussy. And in my mouth, I said, I taste lemons and metal. And she goes, that's chemo. That's chemo. That's what it is. I had to excuse myself and go get sick in the bathroom because it made me so sick to my stomach. But to think that her body held on to that for more than a year because there was no way to get it out. So this is why things like ionic foot baths that I talk about in whole body healing, I talk about all these alternatives. So the middle book, the one that came out during COVID and just got the least amount of attention is actually the most research I have ever done in my life is in whole body healing. It is so super packed. But that's why I advocate. That's why I advocate, because we're holding on to these things in our bodies, even if you haven't been sick. They're still in there, but I'm taking it to the nth degree in my description saying, look, this person went through so much in their life and it physically came up because their liver was like, oh my gosh, please let me get rid of it.
Yes.
You're saying hello. And the mother working on her, I was like, you got to teach me. You got to teach me. And she tried, but I've never seen anything like it. So everybody has a niche when they're doing body work, and people are very skilled at what they do. And so to anybody that's listening, if you have a skill, hone it. Hone it and use it, because everybody's gifted. It doesn't have to be body work, but whatever your gift is, it will make your life so much more connected. Everything's going to the same one route.
So
I can say route. So route in Maltese is a cuss word.
Oh, funny.
So we say route. And so I was around children and they asked what van, and I was like, it's route 8. And they started giggling. And then somebody was like, don't say route. It's a bag of poop. Sorry. I was like, what?
I didn't know.
So I just caught myself. I was like, they can go that route. Oh, I can do that. We're in America now. I can say that.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this is like, I wish we had like 5 more hours. This is just fascinating, just selfishly fascinating. But I know for everybody listening, it's so helpful. And I think what I love is thinking about everybody leaving here and going and seeking out, your books, because they really are chock full of ways forward. I mean, I think the first piece of this puzzle is, yes, our body is communicating to us all the time. Yes, our body has its unique language. Yes, there is a connection that we have with speaking to it, and whether that's through like the work that you do or all kinds of different things. And I think that the takeaway I'm having is that we can cultivate that inside of ourselves and get better and better and more nuanced in hearing those messages and those signals and symptoms that are coming through, and going, okay, here we go. And, I think too, I know sometimes it can feel overwhelming sometimes to find the right team, like to find the people that are your people to help you process through what you're going through. And I think that it's like, there's a lot of trial and error, and yet it's so worth finding those people. Because when you do, and you sync up with their energy and they sync up with yours, and they are, your gift and your angel to help you through your healing journey. It's like I have had so many practitioners throughout my journey, literally runs the gamut. I mean, all kinds, energy, body work, hypnotherapy, whatever. And it's worth seeking that out. And I think that total body healing is such a great place too, to just kind of go, hey, what even is available? Like for anybody listening who's like, this is all new to me. It's kind of overwhelming. Where do I start? I mean, literally the Body Heals Itself was the first book, obviously, that I got. And I sat on this and still am digesting it. But for like, when did you write this? Because I feel like it was like 5 or 6 years ago, right?
I think it was 2016 was the release date.
Okay.
Might have been 2018, actually, now that I think about that. But you know what? You said something really very important.
Yeah.
You said because you mentioned your friends, but you said your practitioners. And I want to distinct that, because the worst thing people can do is go talk to their buddies and think this is how they're going to get through this healing. Don't go to people that don't know more than you. So what you said was right. They become your friends. They become really, really special in your life. But go to somebody who has devoted their life to that piece of information, so that your friendship is founded on you receiving true and authentic guidance, and you're doing it right. So because what's hard for me, who was in the circle with a lot of parents who had children that were trying to recover from different special needs issues, and I felt like they kept to each other. Find the smartest mom and stay there. Keep going to that person. And to me, it was like, I was already in the healing field. So I was so far ahead in the game to go, I'm calling my naturopath. I'm calling my acupuncturist. I'm taking my kid to this genetic, pediatrician. I'm taking them to the developmental pediatrician. I'm taking them to the nutritionist. I am not going to sit here with you guys and let this be the roof of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to save my child. And that makes you more aware. But I know that we have to go, but I want to give you the opportunity. If there's anything at all that you want to ask me, if there's anything you want to know, I'm more than happy to share or answer any, even if you feel like it's totally a selfish question or whatever. If there's anything that you really have wanted to know, if you're reading it and think, I wonder what, like, you're totally welcome to do that.
Well, I mean, that may be a conversation for another time, because I'm like, I had to think on that, because I'm sure there is something. But I think as you were speaking, I'm always thinking about the listener, like, okay, what would they be going through, and how are they processing our conversation? And there was something that you touched on that I think that was so powerful, and that you were talking about the stage of processing the trauma and the emotions that are coming up, and that you don't have to go relive that trauma. And I would love just to hear, and I know I'm sure you cover it in Healing Ourselves Whole, but I would love for you to share, like, because I think that's a real fear that people have. And the reason why, like, I work with a lot of women who carry extra weight as protection. And there's a real fear of diving into what is inside of the body, because they're afraid of what they're going to find. They're afraid it's going to sideline them. They're going to end up in the loony bin. They're going to have to relive all this trauma. So is there any wisdom, or just kind of in your experience that you could share of, like, touching on what processing really is, and that there is a safe way to do that you don't have to re-traumatize yourself.
There is always a safe way to do that, and that is usually with a professional.
Yeah.
So if you've had a really serious trauma, I cannot recommend EMDR therapy enough. Eye movement desensitization reprocessing. That's really, really important. But the work, because of the fact that mine is only through your body, but that's where I think the trauma has been held. So I want to give the explanation. A person is in a car accident and they remove themselves from their body. Anything that you ask them about what happened, they're hazy. That's the gift of the mind in trauma. It disassociates. It leaves your body. Your body never left. Your body knows exactly what happened, exactly how it was impacted, every single fact. It's sitting in your body like a file of facts into the brain, into the soft tissues. So it's really hard to re-traumatize, but it's all the things that your body has been really wanting to let out. It's really it's a matter of you listening to the story that your body has, because let's go deeper and say a person was assaulted. Yeah. When you hear people's stories, they'll say things like, I just had to get out of my body. I was counting the cracks on the ceiling. I was doing this. You're hovering over yourself, but your body doesn't come with an eject button. So your body has every single minute down to everything in itself. And it is our job to help it to release so that it can unstick out of the frozen tracks. If that means going to an EMDR therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a talk therapist, if it means going to a support group, or if it means reading a book like this and just learning how to dialogue with your body, because all those people that do that work don't dialogue with your body. They're still working with the cognitive and the way that you process. But your body is still hanging on to all the facts. And when I take you through these meditations, your body's story probably isn't the same story you've been telling yourself for years and years. So even though you don't want to re-traumatize yourself, there's no possible way that you haven't retold that story at least 100 to 1,000 times in your own mind, right? Anything that triggers, you tell yourself the story, even if you don't say it out loud. It's not like it goes in and you don't remember. And then your body has been holding, and think about every assault, every landing shard is sitting somewhere in that body. And so my work is to help you remove it. And I'll leave you with this. And it's another thing from Dawson Church, who I love. He talks about a thing called a trauma capsule. And that's in the PubMed articles. The psychologists use this as a term. When something is too overwhelming for you, your mind shoves it into a little capsule, drops it into the body, and walks away. My work is to pick up the capsule that has been embedded into your soft tissues and open it. That's where my work begins. So I call them carrots. They plant. They don't just sit in a capsule. The capsule has opened and the seed has planted, and now it's rooted, and it's been rooted, and it's been growing. And so we remove the plants. And that's what this work is about, because the trauma capsule and the way that you've just been running. So people that think that somehow they've worked through it all, even if they've done tremendous cognitive therapy, which I still highly recommend, but don't leave your body. And not enough people are really helping you understand that the muscles don't just teach you how to move. They don't just have a memory system that says, I can hit a baseball. They have a memory system that says, why do you think if something triggers, you flinch? You can have something positive and keep re-experiencing it. But if you have something negative, it takes one time for the entire body to lock into its memory system. And if you have any trigger that reminds it, your body goes into fight, flight, or freeze immediately. Your body knows instinctively to flinch if it's anything remote. That's the way of the body. The memories haven't moved. They haven't moved since the moment that they were implanted. And so I wanted to give people the power over themselves to learn how their body, what the story is, because your story has changed over the years. Even though things are frozen in time and you're still whatever age you were when the trauma happened, you listen to so many other people's stories, or you read so many other things. And those stories, your mind is open to interpretation, but your body is not. And that is a really, really massive scale of healing that I'm begging you, if you are scared of being re-traumatized, sit in a room, do it with somebody that you can trust, have somebody go through it with you, go see your cognitive therapist, maybe even at the same time, ask them to read it with you. But what I'm offering is the part that hasn't been documented enough. And it's really valuable and important healing work.
Amen. I mean, I'm like, preach, girl, preach. And that's what I love the title of this book, Healing Ourselves Whole, because that's the hope, right? Like that, this is for healing. This is for liberation.
This is for our life.
Freedom. Yeah.
I
And so
want everyone to live a great life. I lived a sucky life for a long time. And when I started writing books, I mean, I was making D's in English literature in college. It wasn't like I was some writer that, I don't have a degree in creative writing. I started writing because I had something to say. And I started writing more. I actually self-published a book over 7 years called From Fear to Faith. It's not published anymore. I unpublished it, but it was my journey through anxiety. Because I felt like, and that was originally why and how I started writing.
Wow. I love that.
I'm so stuck. I don't know where to go. And I've gone to a million therapies, and I've gone to right, left, up, down, east, west, side. And I still couldn't break the cycle. And I went all the way down to rock bottom, and I started writing from there. And I've never stopped.
Well, thank you so much for your voice, for everything that you've put into these just bodies of work, and sharing that so generously and so wholly and so completely with everyone. I mean, it's just, singularly such a gift to my life. And I recommend your workout all the time, like literally to all my clients. I'm like, all right, start with this. And it's so helpful. So if people do want to connect with you further and learn more about your work, where can they go to find you? Where's the kind of the best place for them to connect with you?
HealingOurselvesWhole.com is the same website as Emily A. Francis books. So they're the same place. It'll take you to the same location, and you'll see all my social media links. You'll see, I probably should write more like blogs on healing, but I feel like everything I've got, they're in the books. It's very hard to write more.
It's all there.
It's all there. So now I have a blog called My Malta Life, which is my whole story about moving to a foreign country, never having visited. And I'm honest and vulnerable in those. But honestly, if you want to look at me on Facebook or Insta, wherever, it's always Emily A. Francis. And the A is because there's a lot of Emily Francis. And before I got married, I was Smith, and there was a million Emily Smiths. So that A is really crucial to my name.
I love it. Well, we will make sure to link in the show notes, website, your social channels, all that stuff. So y'all, please go follow Emily, go buy her books, please, like whichever one you want to start with.
And please leave a review if you buy them. Reviews.
Ooh, yes.
The reviews really dictate the shelf life of your book.
Wow.
So they're so important. And I'm a little resentful of that, to be honest, because I'm so tired of the numbers dictating anything. Yes. It's so much pressure. So I humbly ask you to leave reviews. And also I hate that I have to ask for you to leave a review, because if you like it, then I'm so happy. But now it's like, what? Okay, you have to, even my gynecologist said that when I was like, you're the best OBGYN. And she did such a good job with my deliveries. She's been my doctor since I was 23, and I'm 46, and I love her. And she's like, can you leave that on all the review places? I know that's like, really? I just told you, that's what matters. But nowadays it isn't. And that's,
I know, it's so true. No, y'all go write a review after you've devoured her stuff. Please be generous in that. And thank you for your time. I know it's late there. Thank you. Thank you
for having me. It's been a joy and a pleasure.
I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I have. Please go share this episode, tag me, tag Emily in your stories, and sending you off with so much love. We've got one more episode in this month's topic of body wisdom next week. So tune in, and we'll see you then. Bye, guys.
Hey y'all, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.